One of the OIPC's greatest strengths is our alignment with the Canadian Council on Invasive Species. The Ontario Invasive Plant Council is a chapter member of the Canadian Council of Invasive Species. We represent Ontario on this national board. We're pleased to have Gail with us here today, and Gail is the chair of the Canadian Council on Invasive Species, as well as the executive director of the Invasive Species Council of BC. And so let's call Gail up to the stage. Hi, Gail. And you're on mute.
Good,
There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am going to stop sharing my screen, and you got up very early to be here for us today. Thank you.
Not a problem at all. Totally pleased to be here, and thank you for all that you've had in front of us. You had great speakers so far. Okay, I'm going to take you from an Ontario focus out a little bit more. I'm going to take you to a bit more of a national focus, but all that we do nationally is actually, well, a lot of it's based in the work we do in Ontario and in collaboration with the Ontario Invasive Plant Council. So I'll just get you to pull up the PowerPoint, and then I will run through and tell you a little bit about the Canadian Council on Invasive Species. So I'm sure it'll pop up here shortly.
Do you want me to pull it up, or would you like to pull it up?
No, I'm assuming you guys are pulling it up. So
all right, I will. Just give me 1 minute, and I will have it up for you here.
I'll just start in. So the Canadian Council on Invasive Species was actually started by a call from Canadians. We've had numerous conferences in Ottawa, a few different organizations, and they actually called for a national non-profit organization outside of government that would take a lead on and be a voice for invasive species in Canada. 3-4 years later, through a lot of consultation and input, the output was the Canadian Council on Invasive Species. So this is where I'm going to start at. That's our history. We're Canada's national voice for invasive species, and we've got a network of partners. We call them chapters across. So I'll just go next to Bailey. PowerPoint, move forward. So I'm going to go through a few things that we do and give you some highlights and some projects. We work with the OIPC and others across Canada. So when we give you an example of a project, we're totally open to partnering with you, with the OIPC, as we move forward on that. So when we were structured, like I said, we came from the roots of there was a need in Canada to have a national voice, to have a national non-government organization. The consultation process created a board structure that was diverse. So our board, since inception, has included governments, industry, Indigenous, and chapters across the country. We also have a number of national or regional organizations that are also partners with us across the country. So our work is built on collaboration, picking up on Belinda's comments earlier, and it's driven to make a difference on the ground in all the communities that we can make a difference in. Okay, next slide. There's a lag time here in the slides, so we'll have to just recognize that. So this is just a quick snapshot of our current board. Our board changes like every other nonprofit board every few years, but you're going to see national organizations, Indigenous groups, and governments. And even when they're not on the board, we have partnerships with many of these organizations outside. Next slide. Across Canada, we've been working for the last 10 years and helping establish 10 years plus 10, 15 years and helping establish and grow a network of chapters across the country. So now there's actually 11 chapters across the country. And it's great to see the growth, and there's some that are stronger than others and some that are in the newer stages. But collectively, the chapters work together basically on a monthly basis to share knowledge, but also all the programs that are developed with the input of that diverse perspective across the country. Next slide. So the chapters are members. They guide us. One of the things that particularly guide us on is what we call behavior change programs. So there's two logics. One is you can be an expert and chase an invasive species, but we all want to prevent new invasive species coming in. So behavior change means taking responsible actions not to introduce and move invasive species. Yes, it is supported by invasive species specific information, but a big part of it is let's take collective action that will stop bringing in new invasive species or moving them from your cabin, your cottage to a new area. So I'll just touch bases on some of the national behavior change programs that exist. Next slide. And these will be some that you're familiar with, developed in collaboration, and some of them are actually North American focused or internationally focused. When you look at Play Clean Go or Clean Drain Dry, those routes are national and international. There's actually counterparts that we're in agreements with through the US and Mexico, et cetera, or elsewhere. So these are all focused on behavior change. The logic being, if you Play Clean Go, you will stop the spread and introduction of new invasive plants, new invasive fish, et cetera, if you're not moving things from one area to the other. So Play Clean Go or Clean Drain Dry are two of those campaigns. One of the ones that we've customized in collaboration with many funders and partners in Canada is Buy Local, Burn Local. There's other variations of that that exist across North America and elsewhere. We've adopted for both French and English translations the Buy Local, Burn Local campaign, which means even if you don't buy wood and you cut it, we want you to burn it locally. We don't want you to move it because that's the way a lot of our forest pests are moved around. The PlantWise program, and Belinda talked about Grow Me Instead. Those are two counterparts of the same program. Those programs are focused on having gardeners and the retail, the horticulture industry stop the distribution and spread of the high profile invasive species. So they're giving you responsible choices. So the PlantWise program is, or Grow Me Instead, they're both sister programs and they're blended, are part of what Linda was talking about for a national workshop coming up in 2022. So this is one, if you're, wherever you are in Ontario, wherever you are in Canada, always be willing to ask the retailer that you're looking at plants for, or if you're part of a gardening club, is this invasive? Because that's the way that most invasives get into Canada, is by us planting them. It's about 60%. Next slide. I'm going to touch bases on a couple other programs that are coming up. We have two new behavior change programs that will be launched shortly. They're just in the design stage. One is Don't Let It Loose. And this is a program that's focused on particularly the pet and aquarium trade, but not solely. And it's taken us a while to build input, working with pet and aquarium trade and with others to get a program and a logo that will work for partnering with the pet and aquarium trade. So that will, our program, which we'll be launching shortly, will have resources for all your communities in Ontario. You can work with OIPC on this, and we'll work with you and OIPC to make sure you've got those resources in your community, that you work with the local retailer to make sure that they have information on what to do with that goldfish when you don't want it anymore, or that rabbit or whatever you've got there. So that's it. There is a parallel program that Fisheries and Oceans have that we're also using. It's Don't Let It Loose. It's got a more of a focus on the aquatic side. So we use both campaigns, and that's because the Don't Let It Loose through Fisheries and Ocean is more targeted on aquatics, but we're also using a campaign that's both aquatic and terrestrial. So you're going to see both options available to you. Squeal on pigs. This is a big one, particularly for Western Canada, but it's definitely of concern in Ontario for a lot of reasons. So the issue of feral pigs, feral swine, whatever you choose to call them, is Canadian Council is involved with both national committees and international committees on what's the right thing that Canada can do to help stop the destruction by feral pigs. And feral pigs, actually, if you're not aware of it, are actually a high risk even to our cattle industry and other industries because of the diseases that they can carry. So Squeal on Pigs will be the new program coming out, and you'll find out more about that later on next year, or this year. Next slide. Community science. Both Belinda and the speaker from Invasive Species Center talked about early detection and how important that is. So we've held a number of national workshops on how to engage Canadians in making a difference. And we've learned a lot. We brought together all the leaders of community science programs across Canada and the States to share their lessons about what worked, what didn't work. And we've now launched the first phase of the community science program. Next slide. That is available to all of you. It doesn't matter who you work with, what you do, you're more than welcome to join this project. And it's free, of course. So one of the things we know is that if Canadians or people across Canada are out there looking for and reporting on what's in their backyard or community or park, there's a better chance that they're going to be able to report the invasive species when they see it first time out of place. And so many of our reports in Canada of high risk invasive species are reported by the public in random surveys. So we've launched the I Spy Identify program with iNaturalist, because iNaturalist is the largest community science program that's working in Canada. There's other programs. You're welcome to join that too. We're working with I Spy Identify. Next slide. And so all you have to do is download iNaturalist, and then you'd have access to this program. So this is encouraging people across Canada to be out there, to learn about Canada's biodiversity, but also to learn about Canada's invasive species. So there'll be target species being launched this year. So the program's been launched. You can go on there and report right now. All that's being tracked. It's all being reported by provinces. So we'll know underneath if you sign up for the I Spy Identify program and you're from Ontario, OIPC will know, we'll be giving a report to OIPC that says there's this many people that have reported this many reports from Ontario. So it's all got the background ability to do that. So what we're asking Canadians and non-Canadians, we're asking people to report, to take that program and next slide, to learn about invasive species. We'll have training modules coming up there. We're asking you to observe and report, because that will go into the national database. And what you may or may not know is behind the scenes is federal and provincial agencies are actually monitoring iNaturalist to gain the information there, so they have an early alert into the government system. So next slide. This is a program that we would encourage you to take action, get involved. There's actually a children's version of this program, so you can get your family involved if you have kids. So join up the I Spy Identify, make a difference for Ontario, make a difference in finding out those early species for Ontario so they can be acted on. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, I also want to talk a little bit about some of the events that are coming up. You've already heard about the National Phragmites Conference coming up next week, and we're co-sponsoring that with the Ontario. There's a number of key species in Canada that we're working on in collaboration with our chapters and others. Phragmites is certainly one of them. There's also a National Invasive Species Awareness Week. There's actually 2 times when we host this through the year. The winter version is coming up in February. This is in line with the United States. So this is a time when we partner to have a common call on invasive species in Canada. Obviously, winter is not the time for many of us, particularly in Southern Ontario or Southern Canada, to be out reporting, yes, and making a difference. But we've got, in Southern Canada, we've got more ability to report and take action, but we all, from the north to the south, can take action on learning and being aware. So watch for the webinars coming up. Feel free to promote them. OIPC will be sending out information on that. And we'll be having another 2 to 3 spring workshops on other key emerging issues for invasive species. So those dates I expect to be out by the end of this month. They'll be in the April to June window, so we'll have more information out on that. So I want to wrap by going to the next slide and just saying, let's encourage you to register for the Phragmites Conference. Be part of the solution. Phragmites is widespread in Canada. Let's make a difference. But I encourage you to, if you want more information, go to our website. We've got information there, French and English. We're keen to have you involved in any of our behavior change programs, and we work in collaboration with the OIPC in doing that. So I'm not sure if you have questions, but thank you very much for that. I'm more than open for questions afterwards. Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you for all the great work that you and your team do. I think it is about that collaboration and being able to share information and to benefit from that national network. I think there's so many opportunities here for both organizations, and I think the National Phrag conference next week is a good step off to leverage what we have learned in Ontario with the Ontario Phragmites Working Group, and to demonstrate that to other provinces as to how to get these initiatives off the ground. I also am really excited about the Be Plant Wise, and we're both looking to find funding to figure out to support that type of a program. Again, at all levels, we see it. So thank you for your leadership, your time, and for getting up super early today to come in and join us for our presentation today. Thanks,
No
Gail.
problem. And we will take the Grow Me Instead and PlantWise to another level. Thank you.